Good morning. Let there be light. Feed my lambs. Take care of my sheep. Feed my sheep. Well, who are these sheep in that context? Well, believers in God through Christ, or potential believers in God through Christ, in fact. Don't mind me, I get such stuffles. Shiny coat, wet nose, you see. Healthy dog. Did you know the dog was God spelt backwards? So, ramble. How does one feed the whole world? And not just with material, worldly food, but with spiritual food. Especially, frankly, when most of them don't want to partake thereof. Ramming one's faith down other people's throats has never been something I'm at least bit interested in. Anyone tries to do it to me, won't betide them. So if I even sense it, if someone's trying to force some particular, especially if it matters, if they've got their view, and I know what I know, as it were. The Jehovah's Witnesses are particularly prone to that. They can be very dogmatic about their particular interpretation of biblical scriptures, and I won't have it. What if I know something a different way, or I would suggest in a clearer, more perfect way, but far be it from me to aspire to such things as being perfect, I mean. Well, clearly, well, I don't know, is it clear? How to achieve this sort of pure, clear, unadulterated faith. We have the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, as our principal guide to Christ, his life, his teaching, his acts, his miracles, and so on. We could argue, I mean, people do, and the whole thing's just a made-up stuff. Well, that's there and other. I am a Christian. I love God through Christ. Here I am, a grown man in the fullness of life, approaching 70 years old, and I am a Christian. And essentially that has been my longing, my wish. I wrote it in at the end of the Gospel of John. There's a spare half page in my New International Version of the Bible, so a good English translation. I wrote it there. Oh, I don't know. I've had that Bible since I was in Holland, which was, I don't know, at least 20 years ago. But I am a Christian. That's, I just am a Christian. I don't have to kind of wonder anymore, never mind how I feel at the time. And quite frankly, in this veil of tears at present, I don't feel all that marvellous, actually, as it happens. Well, how much sort of virtually infinitely more so, must God feel when he sees the pinnacle of his creation, that is us, human beings. There are no little green men out there. All of that stuff's complete, utter toddle. Believe it or not, the earth, with its, what it is, the whole schlemazel, that is it. And we, each individual, single human being, per se, is individually the most beautiful creation of God. Amen. If I don't inhale, it's mankind's sort of connection with fire, basically. This is fire. So my spirit sort of, when I light this one little cigarette I have with my pot of tea in the morning, especially, it's sort of, I've only got a gas fire here, not a beautiful log one or coal one or whatever. So it's my connection with that ancient sort of association of man with fire. So, feed my lambs, take care of my sheep, feed my sheep. It's the last thing that Christ said or did, virtually. Certainly, it's the last chapter of the Gospel of John. Well, in a way, all of us, anyone who purports to be a Christian, should be trying to do that. Just by the way we are. Just in the, numerous or few interactions with other human beings. I mean, I live here. I'm laid up with an acute bout of gout at the moment, so I haven't been out for a fortnight. I've always got food in the house and so on. So, and the only human interaction I had yesterday was with an old gentleman who was passing. I could look out at the back and check they've taken my rubbish, as it were, bin day on Tuesday. And there was an old gentleman just looking at, I have these wild blackberries. Oh, he said. I said, oh, they're doing well. That was about the limit of my interaction. And he said, oh, well, early this year. They usually are. I think he said, oh, October, which I think is a bit late for them. But that's when you go blackberrying in autumn, late September, or October even, whereas they're already looking like green, but lovely berries. They were lovely, the sort of pale pink flowers first, and had the old bees out on them. But as I've stated in my film yesterday, oh, where are the butterflies? Oh heavens, here's a butterfly. I mean, I've got this lilac at the back, and they're generally awash with flutterbys, butterflying. Feed my lambs, take care of my sheep, feed my sheep. Amen. Well, I make these films. I just checked again. There's a chap called, I don't know actually what his name is, Beard Meets Food is his moniker on YouTube. And basically, most weeks, Sunday evening, around 8 o'clock, and here we are in Britain, British summertime or whatever, he posts a film of him absolutely, he almost always wins these food challenges to eat huge amounts of something or other. Anyway, I believe he fasts and so on. He's not a fat chap. He's a big frame, and he's got 1,500 million views or something. I think he's got 5 million subscribers. I think maybe there's something like 200 subscribers to my little channel. But I think most of them are dormant. I make these films, and if it's over a minute, no one bothers. Basically. Well, let's say I had, just for, the exercise, let's say I had the reach of the Pope, who, incidentally, were virtually the same age. I think he's just a month or two older than me. He was born just a month or two before myself. And curiously, his birth names are the same as my son, Robert Francis. My grandfather on my father's side was Robert. That's why I chose that name from my family. We both wished for a little girl, actually, my former wife and myself. The broken marriage, complete, utter, which is what has given me this faith. Well, okay, but then faith without works, that's the problem. I absolutely insist on putting on the front burner, quite frankly, at the moment. What if I had done nothing more than a few little old films? I mean, okay, getting on for 4,000 of these films, well, so what? What have I done? I've sort of got some old family papers and letters and photographs and so on out. I'm a very family-oriented sort of fellow. And I think I can be rightly proud of my background. Just middle class, not well off middle class, in fact. But my grandfather was a Guy's MD. He managed to achieve, he had the choice of 3 scholarships to Guy's Hospital in London, to St. Bartholomew's Hospital, and the third would have been Tommy's, I think, St. Thomas's. He chose Guy's, and he ended up as a Guy's MD, and then he went out to Southern Africa and worked as a GP, a general practitioner, but then acquired this farm, Fort Armstrong, by Balfour in the Eastern Cape, Bedford, South Africa, not Bedford, England. Was the main town. He was instrumental in having the hospital built, and was well known and respected in the area. I mean, I gather, obviously not often, but he would actually ride on a horse 3 days out, see the patient, black patient it would have been. Cause of the area, the people there in that area of South Africa speak cause, like Mandela, or for that matter, Miriam Makeba, the singer, she is Mama Africa. But he then also had this farm, Fort Armstrong, and had planted some 5,000 orange trees. There's a curve, and it's called the Cat River, spelled K-A-T. Katrivier in Afrikaans, Dutch. My lot, of course, were Scottish, South Africans, not Dutch, but anyway, whatever. My father was English. He got out after the First World War, so family stuff. There we are. So farmers, doctors. He married his wife Isabel was a Ross, so Scottish ancestry, but on a big farm. They were farming people, and she had been a nurse too, like my mother. But I gather also a mathematician. Always has a back like a ramrod. I've got a few pictures of her. And she always just had this back, and she came and stayed with us by Durban in South Africa when we were still there back in the early 60s, and passed away with us. So I knew my granny too. When I was young, I would have been 7 or 8, 63, 8 maybe. Feed my lambs, take care of my sheep. Feed my sheep. Well, clearly Christ is speaking of spiritual food. You can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. I mean, that's the saying, isn't it? This awful little man, the President of the United States of America, with his garbage that comes out of his mouth, to which I try very hard never to listen to a single word of it. I'll pause him on the news if I'm watching a news item. Fast forward until he's finished. But, you get the leaders you deserve. Purportedly, this evangelical Christian backing he has, and he purports to be a Christian and so on, and judge not lest you be judged. But I mean, if he's a Christian, I'm a tinker's uncle or something, I don't know. Oh, Lord, heaven help us. Well, Hitler must have had a mother. You can't do these things on the world stage. You have to get there somehow, and purportedly a democratic process getting presidents of the United States of America elected. But the whole thing's an absolute dominated by money, I gather, mostly. It's the current thing. Elon Musk, whose name I will say, still the wealthiest man in the world, and that awful little man, the President of the United States of America, whose name I will not say. Now at each other's throats, as former comrades possibly are known to do. It's lovers, isn't it? Who fall out. I'm not suggesting that. There was this brief period when seemingly everything was fine between them. Now suggesting that he'll fund the other lot. Well, please. But I gather that's basically how it works. This is why the awful little man, the President of the United States of America, can, he has to listen to the Jewish lobby, this, oh Lord, whatever it's called, AIPAC or something, AIPAC, AIPAC. They're just stopping this aid. The whole of the American aid, worldwide aid setup is being halted. So millions of especially children will die. So how do I feed them? They're presumably, they're sons of human being as well. All the human beings who absolutely do not believe in God through Christ. The Hindus, just for a start. The Muslims, obviously. But God clearly meant that to be. There are three Abrahamic faiths, so obviously Judaism, the Jews, the Christians, the Muslims, but actually God put Ishmael into the world before Isaac. So Abraham and Sarah, or Sarai, who then became Abraham and Sarah, couldn't have children. God said, sleep with your wife's servant lady, Hagar, and along came Ishmael before the son born in wedlock, Isaac, who then is the line, a Jewish line to the Abrahamic faiths. So in a sense, I mean, there's Muhammad, who's AD 600. But in a sense, Muhammad being the sort of founding cornerstone of the Muslims, in a sense, the Muslims came first, before the Christians, I'm saying, not before the Jews. So there's a thing. So here we are, feed them, feed. How do we feed these lambs? Was the greatest of difficulty, quite frankly, as far as I'm concerned. I keep at it. I've got all my family stuff laid out. Silly me. Half Scottish by blood. They make wonderful mothers, the Highland cattle. Oh, Lord. My growing family. Silly ass. Cheerio.